All right, so today we're doing the second lesson on trig. So it starts out by saying, remember that, and you need to write the word angle. An angle measure should always follow the trig function.
Why?
That's just how it goes, like the sine of 30 degrees or the sine of 45 degrees. That's just how you write trig functions. All right, so we are going to do basically the opposite of what we did yesterday. So yesterday you would find the sine of an angle and solve for x. All right, so on your notes, it says how to solve for the missing angle. So yesterday, you take the sine of an angle, you'd solve for x. X is the side length. Now you're going to have the side lengths, and you're going to have a variable in for the angle. Sometimes it's a letter you recognize. Sometimes it's a Greek letter. We'll talk about those as well, okay? So if the variable in the trig equation is in place of an angle, you must solve using inverse trig functions, okay? That's why I said a minute ago the phone calculator does not work because it doesn't have those buttons, okay? The button looks like this, okay? That's the inverse. That's what you'll type in to find the x when you have something like this. Sine of x equals a number, so it'll be like sine x equals 4/5. What you'll type in is inverse sine 4/5. Hit equals, that's what x equals. All right, same thing here. If you have cosine of a variable equals some fraction here, you're going to find x by doing the inverse cosine of that fraction. Same thing down here. X is going to equal the inverse tangent of the number. So after you write that down, try to find that button on your calculator. Every calculator has it in a different spot. A lot of times it's the same button as the trig function. You just have to hit the second first. So see if you can locate that.
I don't got it.
Second sine.
Okay, so before we get going, make sure you have these down. These are numbers you'd be given in an assignment. The triangles are just blank on our notes because they're just blank notes. So yes. If you're looking at the x, the 10 is opposite, the 23 is the hypotenuse. So the sine of x equals 10 over 23. How would you get rid of, how would you undo sine x?
Sine squared, or to the negative first.
Yeah, so really this is how it is solving the equation. You're taking the inverse sine of both sides. And what you essentially do is just get rid of the sign. So you have x equals, in your calculator, you need to do inverse sine 10 divided by 23. So like on this calculator that I'm using, I have to hit second, then the sine button that brings up the inverse sine, 10, division symbol, 23. Oh, on mine, now it told me domain error, so I'm going to try it again with parentheses instead. And now it does work. 25.8 is what I'm coming up with as well. Anyone agree, disagree? Questions?
I agree.
Mine's not working. You said you do parentheses.
Yeah, so hit second sine, that'll bring up the inverse sine. Open parentheses, 10 divided by 23, close them. Yep. On number 2, 7 is the what?
60.3.
Opposite, 4 is the adjacent. So I'm going to use 10x equals 7/4.
No. Yes. 4
Yeah. It's 7/4.
It's opposite over adjacent, so 7/4. So to get the x by itself, I'm going to take the inverse sine of both sides. Inverse tangent of both sides. Use parentheses again. So second tan, that brings up the inverse tangent. I have to open the parentheses. Some of the calculators, it opens them for you. Just make sure you close them.
60.3.
I am also getting 60.3. Does anyone else agree with this?
Yeah.
Awesome.
11 divided by cosine of 50.
We got adjacent and hypotenuse, so that's
17.1.
sin. Using sin.
Adjacent and hypotenuse is
Sin.
no other one. Cosine. Sine is opposite hypotenuse. So ha. Yep. So
Negative 150.
cosine 50 equals.
11 over x.
Okay, so how do I solve this?
Take the x over, then divide 11 by cosine 50.
Yeah, so this one is actually a problem from yesterday. You don't use inverse cosine. See the difference? We have a number after the cosine, so we use regular cosine. When you have the variable after it, that's when you use the inverse.
41.3.
So here we'll actually do 11 divided by cosine 50.
11.1. I mean 17.
No.
You made me write an 11.
No, it's not.
What did you guys get?
17.1.
17.1. We're rounding to just one number after the decimal. All right. Any questions why we use regular cosine and not inverse cosine?
Because the x was on where you here.
Yeah, you use inverse when the variable is after the trig function. When there's an actual number like 50 degrees, you use regular trig function. All right, how do I set up number 4?
That's sin.
9 is the adjacent. 12 is the hypotenuse. This is cosine, yep. Cosine what? 9 over 12? So how am I going to get the x by itself?
What up?
How do I get x by itself? Inverse cosine.
41.4.
X equals, does anyone agree with that?
I agree. No. What do you not agree about? Because she said it.
41.4.
Just kidding. 41.4.
Got it.
Degrees.
7 is the straight line.
10 is the hypotenuse.
So, okay, so you have a ladder
Why you want to use that way?
and you have a building.
Yep. 7 is the other.
So 7 is the building.
Yep. And 10 is the ladder.
10 is the ladder.
And then X is like at the bottom in the corner.
The angle.
Yep.
Okay. So very good. We have a 10-foot ladder leaning up against the wall. It goes 7 feet high on the wall. I am asked, what is the angle between the ladder and the ground? That's opposite. That's hypotenuse. So you're correct. It's sine.
I'm sorry, this sounds stuck in my head.
Sine. Sine what? X equals what?
7 over 10.
7 over 10. And how do I get the x by itself? Inverse sine of both sides.
40. Wait. Opposite over adjacent is total. So 10 is 40 degrees. 10 is 40 degrees.
All right, what'd you guys get on 44.4 degrees? Awesome. And then last one for our notes today.
61.3.
So you're 73 feet away from a tower. You're looking up at 40 degrees.
61.3 feet tall.
How tall is the tower? So you're looking for this? All right, what trig function did you use? So tangent 40 equals x over 73. So you can do tangent 40 and then multiply that by 73 and you'll get your x. Anybody have it?
Yes, 61.3 feet.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to give you your worksheet. You'll have the rest of class to work on it. And then we'll finish up trig tomorrow.